I have this giant cottonwood that I need removed. By my calculations, it's about 125 feet tall. You can see from the tape that I've got around it, it's 16 foot and 2 inches around, which means it's 5.5 inches in diameter. It presents some unique challenges because it's on the side of a hill. You can see that from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill is easily about 8 to 10 feet. I don't really want the tree to fall in the pond when I cut it, but that seems to be my only option. We took one limb off already that was about 3 foot in diameter, and it went over into the neighbor's yard, which worked out perfect because we took the fence down and it actually went between two of the posts, so we didn't even have to replace a post. I got several bids on the tree, and they were in the $6,500 to $7,500 range, and that was just to take the tree down. That wasn't to clean it up. And the discouraging thing about the bids was nobody wants to guarantee their work. The whole point of me having the tree removed is because I have a walnut tree I want to save. I have 2 buckeye trees I want to save. I have several little oak trees that I want to save. I have an eastern white pine that I want to save. So anyway, seems somewhat discouraging to spend that amount of money and then not have the guys that are going to do it be confident that they're going to save the trees that I want to save. So I'm going to try to do it myself, which is why I already cut that big limb off. I put a rope around it and got my level out and made sure that the line that I painted all the way around the tree is level. And then I went ahead and also painted a line on the bottom of the tree. You can see down here. Painted a line on the bottom of the tree to show where I want to cut the wedge, and I'm sloping the wedge down instead of up because I want it to just fall out when I get it cut. I have a 36-inch MS660, so I'm hoping that's big enough. I know it's not going to leave any to spare, but hopefully I can get through the tree, and hopefully I can get the tree going and falling right towards my house. I don't want it to fall on this island because there's an autumn blaze red maple out there that I want to save, and I also don't want to wreck the island. As far as getting the tree out of the water, I'm not convinced that'll be a huge problem because I've called a big tow truck in the past to have something pulled out of the pond, so we'll deal with that when we get it down, and hopefully everything will go well. This is a view of the tree looking from the direction of my house. Okay, so here's an update on the tree. We're going to cut it down this afternoon. My friend Clay had a good idea about putting some chains around the tree before I have it fall in the pond so that it'll be a lot easier to hook a cable to it to pull it out. Probably be about impossible to get the chains around it once it's in there, so that's a good idea. Clay and Steve, you can see way up there, we had the lift a couple of weeks ago when they were working on another tree here nearby. They went ahead and put that strap up there, and I think that strap is about 55 or 60 feet high, and so then we've got I think we're going to have about a total of 150 foot of strap to pull the tree over there towards the house. I also started doing some preliminary cutting. I was using my big 36-inch MS660, and I discovered that it was kind of hard to handle when the tree on one side is about 8 feet lower on the ground than it is on the other side, so I end up having to be on a ladder. So I got my little 20-inch MS-261 out and started cutting some of the wood out of the front, so that'll hopefully make it a little bit easier once I decide to put the wedge in there. I also discovered when I was reaching up inside this hole in the bottom of the tree, and then you can see as it goes up into the top of the tree's basically hollow all the way through. You can reach up down through that hole, and you can see there it was getting a little rotten when I was starting to cut the wood out. So that's another thing that presents kind of an interesting challenge to this tree, is it's going to be rotten and hollow in the middle, so I have to be pretty careful about that. Okay, so now it's starting to get a bit more interesting. As I cut away a few more chunks, you can see that the tree is indeed hollow. I knew the cutting was easy, so we'll have to deal with that. Got the two trucks hooked up to the straps and ready to pull, so I'm ready to start cutting the wood. edge is done. I think it's deep enough. So I'm going to start working on the back. Now I need to drag out all my siphon pieces and siphon down the pond so that it's a lot more shallow. So hopefully it'll make it easier to drag the tree out of the water. Okay, I got my siphon hooked up. It starts over here on this side of the dike, and then it goes about 100 feet underground over to here, and then flows out down there. And this is the siphon on the downside of the pond. It should be able to lower the water about in the pond 6 or 8 feet in 24 hours. I think it's, I don't know, several million gallons in a day. Just plan on getting in the water.
Water in the thermos, or yeah. The truck's on fire underneath. It started the grass on fire.
I don't see nothing now. Okay, so it's about 12 hours later the next morning, and the siphon's working great. The pond has dropped about 3 feet in 12 hours. So we'll let the siphon continue to run for a while. Well, we've got about 2/3 of the tree cut up and hauled out of the pond and hauled away and burned, and a couple loads for firewood, and I cleaned off the stump so that it's nice and flat, so when people are standing on it they don't trip and fall 8 feet down. And we're going to start working on the rest of the tree. A lot of the fish are hovering around the top of the pond. I think the tree falling in the pond stirred up the water so much it's pretty muddy, and so they're having to struggle to get some oxygen. I think they'll be okay, but for the last day or so they've all been hovering around the top, even the koi and the catfish and the carp. I haven't seen any casualties yet though, so that's good.
Here's the 2 tow truck drivers and Doug trying to figure out where to put the chain to be able to drag this out of the pond. They tried with the 1 tow truck, smaller 26,000-pound tow truck, and it didn't budget, so now they brought the larger truck in. They just don't want to break the cables, because then those could snap back and cause some damage, so we'll see how it works. I'm going to try to put the chain a little bit higher up on the tree this time instead of there. That didn't seem to help at all.
Well, we got the tow truck pulling the tree out. They might need to use a second tow truck because it's kind of struggling. Okay, so now we got 2 tow trucks hooked up. Let's see if that works a little better. Moving again, slowly but surely. I ended up having to hose down some of the sections of the tree trunk and the logs that were covered with mud from when they were dragged out of the pond. It dulls the chains too fast on the chainsaw, so just rinse some of the mud off. You can see some of the fish kind of hovering where the spring flows into the pond. I think they're struggling to get some air. Some of them have died, so some of them are pretty large, and so hopefully won't lose too many more. I'm not sure if it's the lack of oxygen that's killing them because the water's all muddy, or if there's some sort of algae that got all stirred up, or maybe even sap from the tree. I'm not sure. These are some of the casualties I pulled out of the pond. There's 3 big koi. You can see there's 4 big catfish. There's a small largemouth bass there, and there was a 4 or 5 pound largemouth bass that I laid here yesterday, and it's gone, which is to be expected because there's a lot of coyotes and foxes around here, so I'm sure something ran off with it.
Oh, no, you're done.
Okay, so I started cutting the main trunk. It's about 5.5, 6 feet in diameter. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, when we cut the tree down, a raccoon ran out of the middle of the tree once it fell into water. We didn't get that on video. It was a couple of minutes after the tree fell. Big raccoon ran out of the tree. If anybody had any doubts as to why the tree needed to come down, they shouldn't now. It's so hollow, a whole family of bears could live in there, let alone a single raccoon. So it's a good thing we cut it down, because there was a big cavern in there. Well, I've got the tree completely cut up. Hopefully the pieces are small enough we can just load them into my neighbor Mark's tractor and throw them on the burn pile. Having that MS660 with the 36-inch blade sure made things go pretty quick. Mark coming to the rescue to help us load wood with the tractor.